Let me bring in now NBC senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett, and also with me Carol Lamb, a former federal prosecutor and an NBC News legal analyst. Thanks to both of you for being here, for joining us. Laura, let me start with you. We do not know what these specific charges are yet, right? I mean, we know there are more than 30. What are you going to be watching for tomorrow? What are your big questions?
The big question is, what is the evidence that the prosecutor has to support the charges that we believe have to do with falsifying business records? That's a charge that is typically a misdemeanor, and in order to elevate it to a felony, where we're talking about actual jail time on the line, Kristen, it has to be in connection with furthering or trying to conceal a second crime. And so my big question is, what is that second crime? What is the district attorney's hook here for trying to charge the former president in the United States with a felony? Is it some state election crime, election law crime? Is it a federal campaign violation? Is it conspiracy? We just don't know, and we don't have the visibility into what's in the indictment. But that's going to be a key question, because it will help us understand the stakes here, and will help us understand what is the theory of the case that the prosecutors are going to bring against him.
Carol Lamb, let me turn to you, because Laura maps out a legal strategy that some legal analysts have said is risky. This is untested in some ways. How risky is this strategy to bring whatever these charges may be against the former president?
The one thing that prosecutors really don't like is to do things that are unprecedented. We like to have well-worn paths where the judge's rulings are going to be predictable, and more importantly, the appellate court's rulings are going to be predictable. When I heard the reports that there were more than 30 charges in the indictment, it got me thinking that what this district attorney has done, and I tend to agree with his approach, is probably to charge former President Trump's actions in every which way possible. Let me explain what I mean by that. He may have done a few things. He paid hush money. He repaid Michael Cohen, who had already paid hush money to Stormy Daniels. But what this district attorney likely did, and we will know in 24 hours, thankfully, what he likely did was charge it in a number of ways. So what Laura was referring to, what is going to create the felony here? Maybe it's violation of state election law. Maybe it's violation of a federal election law. Maybe it's a tax charge. And it's that last charge that I'm going to be particularly interested in seeing whether it's charged, because I think that could be the cleaner case. It could be the case that's most removed from politics here. And this district attorney can actually charge all of those things, plus a conspiracy count. And that's important as well, because a conspiracy count would allow the district attorney to get in certain types of evidence about the acts of co-conspirators who may not be charged. They may be uncharged co-conspirators in the indictment, but it allows the district attorney to put in more evidence about what the actual charge was. Now, let me get back to the tax charge or the potential tax charge for a minute, because when the Trump organization, presumably at Donald Trump's direction, repaid Michael Cohen, they repaid him not just the $130,000 that went to Stormy Daniels, but they gave him a bonus, and they gave him an extra amount of money to pay the taxes that they anticipated he was going to pay on that $130,000. So what that means is that the Trump organization, and presumably Donald Trump, anticipated the filing of false tax returns. So I'm going to be looking for all of that, because 30 counts in an indictment is a lot. And I think that the district attorney is approaching this in a way that's going to give him the most leverage here.
Well, it will just be fascinating to finally see what is in this indictment. Laura Jarrett, what more do we know about this judge tomorrow?
Somebody who runs a tight ship, which by all accounts, given the spectacle that we have seen play out just in the last couple of hours before he's even actually faced an arraignment, will be important here. I specifically asked people who had appeared in front of him whether he was likely to issue a gag order, which would be an order barring the former president or his attorneys or even witnesses from talking publicly about the case. Obviously, that would be a huge move, especially especially considering that the defendant here is actually running for public office to be the next president of the United States. So prohibiting him from talking on the campaign about this would be an enormously consequential move. And some of the people that I spoke with, former prosecutors who've appeared in front of Judge Merchan, said he may not do that. But what he may do instead is you see him issue sort of a warning shot to the former president, an admonishment of sorts to say, basically, be on notice that I'm watching, and if you keep talking, you do so at your peril. Now, other people I spoke to said the judge may not say anything at all and simply just let him talk. Everything he's saying right now can be used against him, and so even the district attorney may just want to just let him talk and see what he's likely to say if completely unrestricted. Obviously, making any threats would be a different issue and would be handled in a completely different way, Kristen.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.